My mother-in-law paid off a judge to steal my son, she said. The baby's better off without someone like you. I stayed silent. I did this. A month later, she lost everything. You know, there's a certain kind of rage that hits different when someone comes for your kid. Not your money, not your pride, your blood. And when it's not just some stranger, but your own family, or in my case, my wife's family, that's when you realize how far people are willing to go just to F*** with you. I always knew my mother-in-law hated me. From the jump. Even before my son was born, she had this permanent look on her face like I was some mistake her daughter would eventually wake up from. She was one of those women who thought nobody was ever good enough for her little princess. But somehow every other man she compared me to was always richer, smarter, taller, better, at least in her delusional little world. First time I met her, she didn't even say hello properly. No handshake. Just this fake-ass smile and a backhanded compliment like, "Oh, so you're Jason? You're different than I pictured." Yeah, real warm welcome. My wife, ex-wife now, always tried to play the peacekeeper. Don't mind her, babe, she's just overprotective. Nah. Overprotective is one thing. This woman made it her full-time hobby to try and humiliate me at every opportunity. Every dinner, every holiday, every ****ing family gathering. Little jabs, little cuts. And I took it, bro. Not because I was weak, but because I loved my wife, and I didn't want to be the guy who caused friction in the family. And honestly, back then, I figured once we had our son, maybe things would change. Maybe seeing me as a father would soften her up, make her see that I wasn't some villain out to ruin her daughter's life. But man, if anything, it made her worse. She got more controlling, more invasive, always trying to insert herself into decisions about how we'd raise our kid. Are you sure you're feeding him enough? Jason, maybe you should let my daughter handle this. She's got better instincts. Like I wasn't even standing there. Like I was some third wheel in my own damn house. And you know how it is, bro. When you've got a newborn, you're exhausted, you're running on fumes, you don't have the energy to fight every single battle. So you let something slide. You pick your moments. But the problem is, people like her, they see that as weakness. They think silence means permission. And my wife? She wasn't much better. She always played both sides. In front of me, she'd defend me, say the right things, but behind closed doors? She let her mom get away with murder. She never once stood up to her. And slowly, that woman kept pushing herself deeper into our marriage, like a cancer. And I'll be real with you, my marriage was already hanging by a thread when it finally snapped. We weren't perfect. Far from it. But the second divorce was on the table, that woman saw her opening. She wasn't just satisfied seeing us split. No, that wasn't enough for her. She wanted full control. She wanted my son. The divorce itself was ugly enough, but nothing really surprises you when a marriage falls apart. You fight over money, over property, over who gets what, that's standard. What I wasn't ready for was how quickly my mother-in-law turned that courtroom into her personal battleground. See, I honestly thought my ex would at least fight fair when it came to our kid. I thought, deep down, she loved our son enough to keep him out of her mother's twisted games. But man, I gave her way too much credit. The second we filed, her mom swooped in like a vulture, whispering poison into her ear nonstop. Jason can't give him stability. You know he works too much, he's never home. You'll both be better off without him dragging you down. Let's get full custody. Like I was some deadbeat loser who didn't provide for my kid, like I hadn't been the one grinding every damn day to keep a roof over their heads while she sat at home playing house under mommy's supervision. And the sickest part? My ex bought into it. Fully. She went from agreeing on shared custody to filing paperwork asking for full legal and physical custody, claiming I was emotionally unstable and too consumed by work to properly parent. The nerve. The same woman who used to text me in the middle of my shifts saying, "You're the best dad, I don't know how you do it all." Suddenly I was unfit. But here's where it got real dirty. I started noticing her lawyer playing extra bold in court. Throwing out allegations like they were reading from some damn script. Like they already knew the judge was gonna side with them before the words even came out. That didn't feel like normal courtroom maneuvering. It felt rigged. And man, that's when my gut started screaming again. You ever sit in a room and feel like everyone else already knows how the story ends except you? That's what this custody hearing felt like. No matter what my attorney presented, my work schedule, my clean record, my parenting history, even personal testimonies from daycare workers who praised how involved I was, none of it seemed to land. The judge just sat there, stone-faced, barely looking in my direction. But the real moment it all clicked. That was when her mother slipped. After one of the hearings, she cornered me outside the courthouse. She had that smug little grin she always wore when she thought she was in control. And she leans in, lowers her voice, and says, "You should probably get used to seeing your son on weekends. Judges don't like men who can't keep their families together. Some of us know how to make sure certain decisions get made." That right there, bro, that was it. She didn't say it outright, but she said enough. I just stared at her for a second, processing how far she was willing to go. And all I said was, "You sure you want to play it like that?" She smiled even wider, acting like she already won. "Oh, Jason, you always were dramatic. Just accept what's happening. It's better for everyone." That's when I knew for sure, this wasn't just a nasty custody fight. This was a setup. This woman bribed somebody. And if you think for 1 second I was about to lay down and let her rip my son away from me? Nah. That's when the real fight started. After that little slip outside the courthouse, I couldn't sleep right for days. You know that kind of restless where your body's exhausted but your brain refuses to shut the hell up? That's where I was. Because now it wasn't just some ugly custody battle, it was personal. This wasn't about my ex trying to get more child support or fighting over weekends. This was her damn mother trying to erase me from my own kid's life like I was some babysitter she could replace whenever it suited her little fantasy. And trust me, bro, that kind of attack cuts deeper than any divorce ever could. I kept replaying that conversation in my head, hearing her voice in my ear like some snake whispering poison. Just accept what's happening. Nah. I don't accept S******. Not when it comes to my son. Not when it comes to blood. That's when I made the decision. If they're playing dirty, then so am I. Only difference? I wasn't about to be sloppy about it like they were. See, there's a big advantage when people underestimate you. They think just because you kept your mouth shut through all the insults and all the backhanded comments that you're weak. That you won't fight back. They confuse patience with softness. But what they don't realize is, patience gives you time to observe, to calculate, to line up your moves like dominoes, one after the other. And I had no problem waiting as long as it took. First thing I did was pull my lawyer in and lay it out blunt. Something's off here. These rulings don't smell right. That judge is compromised. My lawyer, to his credit, didn't roll his eyes or tell me to calm down. He leaned forward and said, "All right. Then let's find out how far this goes." That's when we brought in a private investigator. Not one of those cheesy TV show guys either, a real one. Ex-law enforcement, real connections, knew exactly where to start digging. And bro, let me tell you, it didn't take long before things started falling into place. First it was little things. Money transfers that didn't match up. Unexplained vacations. Her mother's bank statements showing large cash withdrawals right around the time certain hearings conveniently went her way. It was all there, just under the surface. And the judge? Turns out this wasn't his first rodeo either. My investigator found whispers of previous complaints, some quietly settled, a couple of sealed cases that suddenly made a lot more sense when you looked at the timing. This wasn't some one-time bribe. This judge had a damn side hustle going for years. And her mother? She was right in the middle of it. Pulling strings, flashing her money around like she was untouchable. That realization hit me like a punch to the gut, bro. Because at that point, you stop seeing it as a custody battle and start seeing it for what it really is, an attack on your identity as a father. They weren't trying to win custody because they thought it was best for my son. They were trying to destroy me because it fed her ego. She didn't want my son, she wanted me erased. Like I never existed. That's a different kind of evil. But you know what? That also made my job easier. Because once you realize someone's capable of that level of dirty, you stop holding back. No more trying to keep it civil for the sake of the kid. No more trying to play nice to avoid drama. That part of me was gone. Now it was about protecting my son, and burning anyone who tried to stand in the way. And bro, once I locked into that mindset, what made this whole thing even filthier was how damn casual they were about it. Like they didn't even feel the need to hide anymore. After every court date, my ex would walk out holding her mother's arm like they were celebrating some shopping trip, not walking out of a courtroom where they were actively trying to rip my kid away from me. I remember one afternoon, I was packing my son's stuff in the parking lot, getting him ready to go back with them for the weekend. Yeah, I was still getting my limited supervised visits like I was some threat, and her mother walks right up to me like she's about to hand me a church bulletin or some crap. She leans in, voice dripping with that same sickening condescension she always carried. "You should be grateful we're allowing you to stay involved at all, Jason. A lot of women wouldn't be so kind after everything you've put their daughter through." I stared right at her. "Everything I've put her through?" I said it slow, letting that sink in. "Lady, you've been crawling up my ass since the moment we met. Don't stand here acting like you're doing me any favors. I'm here because of my son, not because you allow it. Don't get that twisted. She flinched for a second, just for a second, but she caught herself quick, smiled, and whispered, "Careful how you speak, Jason. Judges hear things. You wouldn't want anyone thinking you're aggressive." And that right there, bro, that's how these snakes play the game. They bait you. They push every damn button trying to make you crack so they can spin it into some narrative that fits their little script. See? He's angry. He's unstable. He's dangerous. That's why I kept my cool. You gotta play chess with people like this, not checkers. Every word you say gets weaponized against you later. And trust me, she wanted nothing more than for me to lose it right there in that parking lot. She wanted witnesses, she wanted drama. But all I did was smirk and say, "We'll see who's smiling when this is over." I got in my car, buckled my son in, and drove off, but my blood was boiling the entire ride home. My boy was sitting in the back seat giggling at something on his tablet, completely unaware that he was being used as a pawn in a war he didn't ask to be in. And that right there was the part that hit me hardest, man. If this was just about me, fine. I could take the hits. But when it's about your kid? When you see your child being pulled back and forth, manipulated, confused because the people he trusts the most are fighting over him like property? That's where something different switches on inside you. You stop caring about pride, about image, about trying to be the bigger person. All you care about is protecting your kid. And that's when I knew for sure, I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was done letting them write the story. From here on out, I write the ending. I knew if I wanted to take these people down, I couldn't fight the way they expected. I couldn't show up to court screaming about how unfair it was, or crying about how they were lying, because that's exactly what they were waiting for. That's how they would have boxed me in, made me look unstable, like some bitter ex who can't handle losing. That's the trick with these snakes. They don't need truth on their side. They just need you to look like you're losing control. So I stayed ice cold. I let them think they were winning while I went to work behind the scenes. My lawyer pulled in the private investigator, and this guy didn't play games. He wasn't some cheap dude snapping blurry photos from behind bushes. Nah, this man had contacts in places I didn't even know existed. Financial analysts, court clerks, people who owed him favors. And it didn't take long before cracks started to show. First red flag? Her mother's sudden inheritance, right after the judge got assigned to our case. Funny how money magically appears when you need to buy people. Then came the travel records. The judge and her mother had somehow ended up at the same out-of-state fundraiser twice that year. Same hotel, same weekend, same little private circles. Coincidence? Yeah, right. You don't accidentally bump into the judge who happens to rule on your daughter's custody battle multiple times in different states. But the thing that really made my blood boil? The bank transfers. Clean, simple, and dumb. Multiple cash deposits made to a third-party account tied to some bogus nonprofit her mother donated to, a nonprofit that just happened to funnel payments directly into the judge's wife's consulting firm. It was textbook dirty. But also, it was exactly the kind of arrogant stupid that gets people caught. Because people like my ex's mother? They live so long thinking they're untouchable that they stop covering their tracks. They forget people like me exist. People who've got nothing left to lose and all the time in the world to dismantle them brick by brick. And every time I sat across from that judge afterward, I just smiled. I didn't fight him anymore. I didn't argue. I let him think I was beaten. And that right there? That's where they screw up. Because when people like him think you're already buried, they get sloppy. They stop hiding how tilted the rulings are. Every time he handed down another ridiculous order, every time he sided with her mother's lawyer like it was all pre-written, he was handing me more evidence. Every ruling, every transcript, every piece of courtroom footage was another nail in his coffin. But you want to know what really made me sick, bro? It was seeing my son sit in the back of that courtroom on visitation review days, swinging his little legs on that oversized bench, completely oblivious that grown adults were playing puppet master with his entire life. That's the kind of thing that makes you stop caring about winning, and makes you start focusing on finishing. Because once you've seen that level of filth, once you've seen a man sit behind a bench wearing a robe while secretly cashing checks to screw over a father fighting for his kid, you stop giving a damn about playing fair. They wanted to play dirty? I was about to burn their whole little system to the ground. At that point, it stopped being personal and started becoming surgical. See, once you realize these people built their entire little game on arrogance, you know exactly where to hit them, right in their thing overconfidence. They got comfortable thinking nobody would ever connect the dots, thinking I was too busy fighting custody battles to notice the cracks behind the curtain. But that's where they underestimated me. I wasn't fighting for custody anymore. I was coming for the whole damn operation. My PI kept feeding me more and more data, shell companies, connections to that nonprofit, campaign donations that were laundered so sloppily you'd think they were asking to get caught. It wasn't just my case this judge had dirt under. There were others. Quiet settlements, families who couldn't afford to keep fighting, fathers who'd been stripped of their rights because they didn't have the time or resources to push back. And that's where my lawyer went into full beast mode. We didn't just go after them privately anymore. We filed complaints with the Judicial Review Board, the state attorney's office, even contacted a few reporters who'd been sitting on corruption leads for years but never had a source willing to hand them a fully documented file. My lawyer told me flat out, "Jason, once this gets rolling, it won't be about you anymore. It'll be about every father that judge screwed over." And I looked him dead in the face and said, "Good. Let's blow it wide open." Meanwhile, my ex and her mother were still strutting around like they were royalty. My ex was flaunting new handbags, pretending her life was finally back on track, posting those fake-ass inspirational quotes about healing and being a strong single mom, while completely ignoring the fact that she was part of this whole fed-up scheme from day one. And her mother? She kept up with her little power moves, organizing charity luncheons, smiling for local society pages like she wasn't standing on a pile of bodies she helped bury in family court. But behind those plastic smiles, they didn't see the storm that was building. That's the thing about people like that, bro, they only understand force when it's too late to escape it. And the deeper we dug, the louder my phone started ringing. Attorneys from other cases. Journalists. Court officials. Even a few pissed-off former associates of the judge who were more than happy to spill everything once they realized they weren't the only ones who'd been used. The weight started building, and for the first time, I saw fear hit their faces. You know that look when someone starts realizing the hole they dug isn't one they can climb back out of? That was starting to show. But even then, my mother-in-law still tried to pull one more power move. After a court hearing where my lawyer absolutely shredded their entire argument, she corners me in the hallway again. Same snake-like grin. Same condescending tone. She leans in and says, "You're only making things worse for yourself, Jason. You really think you'll walk away from this with anything left? You're just embarrassing yourself at this point." And man, I didn't even blink. I stepped right into her space, looked her dead in those fake, frozen eyes, and whispered, "No, see, you don't get it. You think this is about you taking my son. This is about me taking everything you thought you could control. You should start practicing how you'll explain this to your friends when the press shows up." That's when she froze for the first time. The confidence cracked. She wasn't expecting me to talk like that. She still thought I was some broken dad begging for scraps. She didn't realize I wasn't playing survival anymore. I was playing execution. And bro, once you reach that stage, that's when they start running out of places to hide. The deeper we got into this, the more it stopped being just my fight. My lawyer called me late one night, voice sharp but controlled, like he'd been waiting to say this for weeks. "Jason, we've got enough. This is bigger than your custody case now. This is a full-scale judicial corruption case." And hearing that out loud, man, it hit different. Because for months, I'd been running on rage, frustration, sleepless nights, always feeling like I was playing catch-up, like I was hanging on by my fingernails trying not to lose my kid. But now we weren't chasing them anymore. They were trapped. And when you get to that place where you know you've got your enemy cornered, it's not even about anger anymore, it's about execution. We filed everything. Formal charges with the Judicial Review Board, State Attorney's Office, Ethics Commission, even a full federal complaint. And bro, once that paperwork hit the system, everything started cracking. Subpoenas started flying, bank accounts frozen, subpoenas pulling financial records not just on the judge, but on everyone tied to him, including my lovely mother-in-law. And you know what was beautiful? These people weren't built for pressure. They had spent years controlling others, but once real heat showed up, they started turning on each other fast. The judge's attorney reached out through back channels, trying to cut some quiet deal to avoid full-blown indictment. My lawyer shut it down cold. "No deals. Your client's going down." And meanwhile, my ex? She started realizing her little fantasy world was collapsing. The custody hearings got delayed because now her entire argument was built on rulings that were being investigated for corruption. Every order that went against me? Under review. Every temporary ruling they thought was locked in. Suspended pending investigation. And her mother? Man, that woman's face in court when the judge was officially removed from the bench? I'll never forget that. Gone was that smug grin, that little head tilt she always threw at me like she was the queen of the room. Now she sat frozen, clutching her purse like it was the only thing she still controlled. The prosecutor's office subpoenaed her financials next, and you could feel the walls closing around her. She tried acting like she wasn't involved, blaming donations and misunderstandings, but paper trails don't lie. Money moved. Hands got paid. Decisions were bought. And now every bit of it was documented. But even with all of that crumbling, bro, she still tried one last week play. I get a call from her lawyer, trying to float a settlement, full shared custody back on the table, all supervised visits lifted, basically trying to walk everything back like none of this ever happened. My lawyer asked me flat out, "Do you want to settle or bury them?" And bro, I didn't hesitate. We finished this. Because at that point, it wasn't about custody anymore. It was about making damn sure people like that couldn't pull this on another father ever again. You don't build an empire on destroying families and walk away clean. Not on my watch. They wanted war? Now they were getting it, delivered legally, publicly, and permanently. When that first set of indictments finally dropped, it was like watching a damn house of cards collapse in slow motion. The judge was charged first: bribery, obstruction, abuse of judicial authority, wire fraud. The list was long. And as soon as his name hit the media, everything flipped overnight. Every single father, every attorney, every mother who got railroaded by that court started coming forward. The system that had protected him for years couldn't cover for him anymore. The press tore him apart. Headlines ran for weeks. And my favorite part? The camera flashes as they perp walked him into federal custody. That robe didn't mean a damn thing anymore. But as satisfying as that was, bro, you know what really made me sit back and breathe deep? Watching my ex's mother finally realize she wasn't walking away from this untouched. See, once the judge flipped and started talking, and they always talk when prison time's on the table, her name came up fast. Her bank transfers, her show companies, the author books, consulting donations, all of it was laid bare. You could feel her world closing in. Investigators showed up at her house, seized her records, froze her accounts. She went from sipping champagne at fundraisers to hiring criminal defense attorneys overnight. And you know what's wild? Even then, she tried to act like she still had leverage. Her lawyer called mine trying to arrange some last-minute, civil settlement, to make it all disappear quietly. My lawyer told me, "We can still cash out right now if you want. Big settlement. Walk away with your kid, full custody, big payout, no more court." And for a second, I thought about it. Not gonna lie. But then I pictured my son. I pictured him sitting in that courtroom, confused and scared while these people smiled and lied in front of him like nothing mattered. And I pictured that smug look she gave me outside the courthouse months earlier. That's when I shook my head and told my lawyer, "We're not done until she's ruined." And that's exactly what happened. When the financial fraud charges came down, she broke. They always do. You strip people like that of their money and reputation, their entire personality crumbles. She pled out to avoid jail but lost everything. Multiple felony counts. Fines that wiped out her entire estate. Her precious nonprofit dissolved under federal investigation. And bro, the cherry on top? She was banned from sitting on any board or charity ever again. Her entire identity, gone. She spent decades playing queen in her little social circle, and now she couldn't show her face at a country club without people whispering behind her back. And my ex? She tried to distance herself fast once her mother went down. She played victim. I didn't know what my mom was doing. I trusted her. I never meant for any of this to happen. That's cute. The court didn't buy it. Neither did child services. Turns out when you knowingly participate in fraud to steal custody of your kid, you lose your parental rights real fast. Full custody awarded to me. Permanent. She gets supervised visits, tightly monitored. And even those, she barely shows up for anymore. Because once the show's over, and they can't control the narrative, people like that disappear real quick. Now it's just me and my son. Peaceful. Stable. No more backroom deals. No more lawyers. Just quiet. And every time I tuck my son into bed now, bro, I know one thing for sure. They thought they could break me. They thought I'd roll over like every other man they bulldozed before me. But they forgot one thing. When a man's fighting for his child, when he's got nothing left to lose, you better pray he stays dumb. Because once he stops being dumb, he becomes unstoppable. You'd think when it's finally over, when you've pulled the whole damn empire down and walked away with your son, you'd feel victory. Like some grand moment where you fist pump the sky and say, "I did it." But that's not how it works, man. That's not how it feels when you've lived through this kind of war. The truth is, when you win a fight like this, you don't walk away cheering. You walk away exhausted. Hollow, almost. Because for months, years even, you lived in survival mode. Always on edge, always calculating your next move, always holding back the anger just long enough not to give them the ammo they were dying to use against you. And when that pressure finally lifts, it's quiet. Too quiet at first. The kind of quiet that almost feels unnatural after living with your back against the wall for so long. I remember that first night after everything was finalized. My son asleep upstairs, no more court dates hanging over me, no more depositions, no more lawyers breathing down my neck. Just me, sitting at my kitchen table, lights dim, a whiskey glass in my hand. And for the first time in years, I let myself breathe. Deep. Slow. Not because everything was perfect, but because it was finally over. And that's when it really hit me. They didn't just try to take my kid, they tried to erase me as a man. They tried to turn me into another one of those broken fathers who got railroaded by a corrupt system that feeds off fathers being disposable. And if I hadn't fought? If I hadn't stayed cold? That's exactly where I'd be sitting right now. Alone. Broke. Without my son. But instead, here we are. And even now, I don't sit around celebrating. I stay sharp. Because after you go through something like this, you don't ever let yourself get comfortable again. You don't assume people have good intentions just because they smile at you. You pay attention. You listen closer. You don't ignore the little red flags anymore, because you've seen what they turn into if you stayed blind too long. My ex tried to reach out once after it all settled. Some sad attempt at reconnecting, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of habit. She showed up at my doorstep like nothing happened, giving me that soft little voice she always used when she wanted something. Jason, maybe we can talk sometime. You know, for closure. For our son's sake. I looked her dead in the eye and said flat as hell. There's nothing left to talk about. You made your choices. I protected my son. That's all that matters. She didn't push after that. She knew better. As for her mother? She's a ghost now. From queen bee to social pariah. Last I heard, she sold off what little she had left to cover the debts. Can't show her face in any of her old circles. No more charity events. No more garden parties. No more backroom power games. She's just another disgraced name in a stack of legal documents now. And my son? He's good. He's safe. He's growing up knowing who stood for him when it mattered. I don't badmouth his mother or grandmother to him. I don't need to. One day, when he's older, he'll figure it out on his own. And when that day comes, he'll know exactly why his father fought the way he did. Why I never folded. Why I never lost my temper even when they tried to break me. Because when you're a man raising a son in this world, that's your job. To show him exactly what strength looks like. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that doesn't break when the world throws its worst at you. That's the real win, bro. That's the victory no court can take away. Months after everything had been settled, after the courtrooms emptied, after the lawyers stopped calling, life finally started to feel steady. Not happy-clappy perfect, but steady. I'd sit outside some nights, just me on the back porch while my sons slept upstairs, listening to the quiet. No more court deadlines hanging over my head. No more games. No more people circling like vultures trying to take pieces of my life. And honestly, that silence, it felt earned. Because once you've been through hell like that, you stop chasing happiness the way most people do. You stop needing everything to feel light. You just appreciate having your peace back. My son's getting older now. He's starting to ask more questions, smart ones. Kids see through way more than people give them credit for. The other night at dinner, out of nowhere, he looks up at me and goes, "Dad, why don't we see Grandma anymore?" I set my fork down, looked him straight in the eye, and said calmly, "Because some people don't always do what's right, buddy. And when people hurt others, sometimes they don't get to stay in your life." He nodded. Didn't ask more. That was enough for now. One day, he'll get the full picture. One day, when he's old enough, I'll tell him exactly what his father had to do to keep him safe. Not to make him bitter. Not to make him angry. But so he knows what it looks like when a man protects what matters. So he understands the weight that comes with being a father who refuses to break. That's the real legacy, bro. Not the house. Not the money. The example. The lesson. The quiet knowledge that when everything around you tries to crush you, you stay standing. You don't fold. You don't let them turn you into a victim. You outlast them. You outthink them. And you make damn sure your son grows up knowing exactly who had his back when the world tried to rip his life apart. As for my ex, she's faded into her own version of exile. Living small, always looking over her shoulder, stripped of the control she once thought she owned. And her mother? That woman's name is dead socially. She can't show her face anywhere anymore without people whispering. The power she fed off for years, gone. She doesn't even get to rewrite the story. The facts are out there forever now. Every document. Every charge. Every headline. And me? I've got my son. I've got my peace. And every time I look at him, I know, they wanted me broken, erased, gone. But instead, I built something stronger. And they'll have to live the rest of their lives knowing that nothing they did could stop me. That's what real victory looks like. Not the loud kind. Not the kind you post online. The kind you carry inside you. And me? I've got my son. I've got my peace. And every time I look at him, I know, they wanted me broken, erased, gone. But instead, I built something stronger. And they'll have to live the rest of their lives knowing that nothing they did could stop me. That's what real victory looks like. But tell me this, if you were in my shoes, would you have gone as far as I did? Or would you have taken the settlement and walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear how you see it. And hey, if this story hit you, make sure to subscribe, smash that like, and turn that bell icon on, so you don't miss the next wild story. We've got plenty more real ones coming your way.